and welcome everyone to Love and the Planets. And today we're looking at the February 2019 relationship forecast. And I'm Margaret Gray in Dublin.
And I'm Armand Diaz in New York.
Yeah, and what amazing isn't the word, but what freezing weather we're kind of getting really end of January, beginning of February. So, Armand, what's in store relationship-wise? Is it going to be cold or is it going to be hot like Australia's?
Wow. So I would guess it's going to run hot and cold depending upon where you are. Let's start out with the beginning of the zodiac, Aries, where things will be pretty hot for Aries. I would have to say there's a lot of activity in the sign this month. I would say that hot and stable are two completely different things, and there's liable to be a lot of jostling kind of energy for Aries. For Aries, and I think for everybody else, I would be a little careful right around Valentine's Day. There seems to be a little extra jolt of energy right at that time that is not necessarily that harmonious. But that's my take on things for Aries. What do you have to say about Taurus?
First of all, to say that, I found this month is a little kind of just jagged, kind of the energies. It seems that one day seems fine for relationships and the next day isn't. So it's very hard to bring it all together and to find an overall theme. And for Taurus, I thought, Valentine's Day is a very particularly interesting day for Taurus. I think it's a particularly powerful time for relationships for Taurus. I think it could be potentially a time of passion, a time of sensuality. I also think that for the month going forward from the 14th, finances might feel a little bit easier. We all know how happy that makes Taurians, so it makes relationships also happier. And I think also what it is, it's not really that Taurus, it's just about money. It's that Taurus loves security. So I think from the 14th onwards, there's really a stronger sense of security. The Taurians kind of feel they've got their feet on the ground a little bit more.
Interesting. Gemini, I would say for Gemini, this month is about friendship. Which is I think very appropriate for Geminis, but I think that's where the energy goes this month. I'm not entirely sure that you're going to, duck out on passion or anything like that. It certainly could be a lot of different things, but friendship is really emphasized this month for Geminis. I think that's really where the energy flows for them.
So looking at Cancer, Cancer is interesting this month because I think it's a much smoother start to the month for Cancerians. Once they also get over the tensions which are around for most of the signs, of course, on the 1st and 2nd of February. So just be aware that that's a particularly tense time. But by the 3rd, I think it might get a little bit smoother, so it might feel a little easier. I think the challenge for Cancer is that, of course, it's a sensitive sign. And here we're talking about whether the sun is in Cancer or whether the moon or Venus or Mercury or Mars, of course. And I think these energies can feel a little abrasive for Cancer, so it may want to hide in its shell a little bit. So once it can get out of that.
Leo has a pretty good month, I would say. There's a lot of supportive energy for Leo, and I think that things are going to be flowing a bit. There going to be some potential for wonkiness at various times because it's just that kind of month. There is this sort of back and forth type of energy, but overall, I'd say that there's a lot of good fire sign energy, and Leo gets the best of that, I think, this month. I would have to add, though, that I'm not entirely sure that the time around Valentine's Day would be particularly good. It's a great time to break away from your expectations for Leo and for a few other signs.
So on to Virgo, I think around the 10th of the month, Virgos can enter into a bit of a confusing time. It's really because the logical mind may not give the answers that Virgo wants, because even though Virgo is an earth sign, it's a very intellectual earth sign, a very analytical earth sign. So of course it likes to really analyze, consider, dissect, process things. And I think that might be a bit of a start of a challenging time. On the 18th, it can get even more more confusion with, when the sun moves into Pisces. So I would say to Virgos, if you can just surrender, surrender to romance, that would be wonderful. And then, of course, on the 19th, there's a full supermoon in Virgo. So it's very much about letting go. So I think there's kind of a process of, a little bit of confusion, bearing with the confusion, then letting go toward, at the middle of the month.
Now, if Libras like balance and harmony, if that's true, is it true? I don't know. If Libras like balance and harmony, it could be a really rough month. The jagged edges that we've been talking about are going to be coming at Libra, not especially so, but coming from the sign of Aries, it's going to feel like it's sort of coming at you. And I think that Libras may have a little bit of difficulty if you're trying to keep things on an even keel. Libra's going to have a little bit of an issue this month.
And we kind of depend on Libras in a way to try and help us all keep balance in relationships. And I mean, generally, not just one-to-one relationships, don't we? It's like we kind of really attribute or project onto them that they're the diplomats really for us all. So not good news if they kind of don't feel, in kilter.
It's not a very harmonious kind of month. It's not a very diplomatic month. It's not a month where we're going to be doing there's going to be a lot of consideration for the others and for manners and things like that.
I think you're right. And, when we look at Scorpio, well, Scorpio, similarly to Taurus, actually fare pretty well this month, I think. They're really the two signs that maybe are likely to get the most benefit in terms of relationships. And I think, on the 14th, it's likely to be a time for maybe a sensual sexual awakening for Scorpios, a deepening maybe if you're already in a relationship. Maybe a romantic weekend away, possibly. Or maybe, for Scorpios who are not in romantic relationships, maybe it is a time for a new relationship or to begin to consider that. So it feels like a time of awakening. So all in all, I do think Scorpios and Taurians really fare the best this month.
Well, someone's gotta. And Sagittarius, I think Sagittarius has got a nice shot at it too. Much like Leo, I think that there's a general an ability to, we talk about there being some jagged energies, but I feel that Sagittarius maybe gets to use it in a productive way, the same way that Leo does. It's energizing for them. Aries, the other fire sign, maybe it's a little too centered on Aries to really be able to work it out. But I think that Sagittarius, especially, Jupiter's in the home sign and stuff like that, that's going to help for this whole year. I think Sagittarius kind of gets the better of it. Again, break out of the box, try new things, have a sort of, open, serendipitous type of attitude towards things. But I like the prospects for Sag.
So maybe some new relationships for Sag as well, do you think?
Could be. I think starting something new is a real possibility for, I would say, for any of the fire signs. But
that's good news. And Capricorn, well, Capricorn, really, I've kind of got the most to say about it. I think this is a very busy month for Capricorns in the whole, arena relationship. With the tension at the beginning of the month, I think it really does impact Capricorn. So just be aware that, the beginning, especially the first and the second of the month, might be a little volatile. So it's very easy to feel provoked. So go easy in relationships is what I would say. Keep grounded, which is your strength, of course, as Capricorns. And be aware that you might be poked and prodded a little bit by other signs. And as a very good Capricorn friend of mine always says, just ignore away, especially those first 2 days. Now on the 3rd, relationships might start feeling a little bit more in sync. And there's certainly tenacity, commitment are highlighted. And I think that's something that Capricorn really resonates with. So that's kind of going to be more in your favor. Now, towards the 17th, I think it could get a little bit more romantic. That might feel like a good time for romance. But as Capricorn energy, you might feel a little vulnerable. And Capricorn energy doesn't like to feel vulnerable. So just be aware and maybe enjoy the romance part. Now, towards the 22nd of the month, then we go back into a very intense time of transformation. So relationships may really be transformed around this time. Check where this lands on you. What planets do you have in Capricorn? this may not feel so comfortable for Capricorns because it requires some change. And Capricorn energy doesn't really like to change. It kind of likes the stability in relationships, the kind of, knowing that its ground is solid. But know that this transformation really could really enhance your relationship. So it's possibly for, certainly for the best.
Capricorn's getting all the attention this month. All right, fine.
It is. It's its turn.
Well, Aquarians kind of get a new start on things as well, because the new moon is going to be in Aquarius this month. I feel that Aquarius has a good shot at productively using those same energies that are so directly energizing the fire signs. Very good for friendship. I think that's a real theme for this month for Aquarians, and probably for everybody. And I would have to say that Aquarius will probably keep its even keel, even temperament things throughout this otherwise sort of stormy month when there is some jagged kinds of energies. The one thing that Aquarians might want to be aware of is that some of that Capricorn energy that you're talking about, some of the things that are hitting Capricorn so directly, is kind of coming from behind with Aquarius. They're not necessarily going to see that energy as directly as some of the other signs do. So there could be some unease that sort of slips in and maybe kind of puts a little pressure on relationships in ways that are unexpected.
Now, before we look at the last sign of Pisces, just to say to everybody who's listening, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do regular recordings on the new moon and the full moon as well. So to make sure you get all of those, please subscribe. So we come to Pisces, and Pisces, it's interesting. Things start getting a little bit interesting around the 10th of the month for Pisces. It feels like, when Mercury slips into Pisces, it's much easier for Pisces to communicate. It's in its element. So it's in this, magical realm of the imagination. It's at ease, it's comfortable, it's romantic. Now, of course, there can be some confusion around, so to just be aware of that. So it depends what kind of communication you're having with your loved ones. It's one thing to communicate romantically, and it's a whole other thing to communicate with a colleague at work or with your boss. So just to be aware of that difference. Now, around the 17th also, it feels like that's an increase in romance. So it feels like that Pisces doesn't get maybe as affected by the harshness that's going on earlier in the month. And if it does, it's kind of compensated by towards the middle and the end of the month. So I would say, enjoy your relationships, Piscean, this month. It's kind of a nice month for you, and it feels you're riding your own energy. And I think when any of us are in that energy, when any sign is in its own energy, it can really, really make the most of it.
It sounds like a pretty busy month. It's not the easiest to get a handle on, but it sounds like it's going to be a very busy month.
Absolutely. And we will see you all next month. Bye-bye, Armand.